Hello again, everyone, and thanks again for joining us here at the for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, hazardous weather graphic. We've got winter weather advisories out here for the northern southeast coast, Gustavus, and then back to the west, the Salisbury and Cape Fairweather coastal zones out here, and that's out for tonight for anywhere from 3 to 4 inches of snow to fall in these areas. Overnight tonight, a system should spread some snow into the area there, slow moving system. Otherwise, up to the north, a continuation of the wind chill advisories. In the case of the southeastern Brooks Range area, Arctic Village, that's winter weather advisory because of areas of blowing snow reducing visibilities, but wind chills 55 degrees below zero, or 30 to 55 or 35 to 50 below zero in these areas. And same thing here right down into the central interior around Tanana, Battles, Koyukuk Valley, Kobuk Valley, Noatak Valley, northwest coast, as well as St. Lawrence Island and the northern Seward Peninsula there. Again, wind chill advisories. The thing is, they all due to end here at 6 p.m., about 3 hours from recording time here. So things should improve, winds should drop off there and at least get under 15 miles an hour, but over the actual air temperature is going to stay well below zero. And on the chart today, or on the satellite imagery, you can see areas of clouds, not really thick, but some cloudiness streaming westward here coming out of Canada, and that due to low pressure here basically over the Gulf of Alaska, and then higher pressure up to the north. That's giving kind of an easterly flow across the interior there. And then some clouds here bringing a little bit of light snow up to the North Gulf Coast. Actually, Yakutat picked up about, let's see, what was it, 1 to 2 inches today. And, oh, there's my cheat sheet right here. Let's see. Yeah, they had about 1 to 2 inches around Yakutat today. And this is what's going to slip on in to the north coast there in Gustavus tonight and bring the snow as things kind of taper off to a certain extent here. But they probably won't end altogether, the chance of snow showers. Otherwise, very cold temperatures continue in the interior with afternoon readings like about 35 to 40 below zero from the northern Kuskokwim Valley to 45 to 50 below up on the north slope. Umiat Airfield, coldest temperature in the state today at 50 below zero. Barter Island, not far behind Kaktovik, reporting station up there at 49 below zero, and Dead Horse at 47 below. So quite cold temperatures from the north slope, and down into the mid-minus 30s in the Tanana Valley, and also into the mid-30s below zero in the Susitna Valley. Again, in fact, some areas, Alexander Lake was down to 40 below zero there in the western Susitna Valley. So probably another very cold night, similar to last night, coming up overnight tonight for Monday night or into Monday morning. Otherwise, a little bit of light snow showers here, a lot less than what you've seen for the Alaska Peninsula, generally less than ½ an inch. Some of that caught southern Kodiak Island. AKwx picked up a little bit of snow shower activity, but nothing too significant. Snow showers basically to the south through here, kind of a line of clouds there away from Kodiak, and still snow showers around the Pribilof Islands. And you can see the outer edge of the next storm system, pretty significant front now coming into the western Aleutians later tonight and tomorrow. Otherwise, today, weak low pressure areas bringing light to scattered areas of light snow, keeping it cloudy. High pressure over the north slope there, Arctic high pressure for sure, with those temperatures, again, 45 to 50 below zero, but winds are on the light side. And winds coming down over the interior with a slackening gradient. light snow showers here from the Copper River Basin, possibly the eastern Alaska Range down to the North Gulf Coast. Not much at Cordova, and again, more concentrated around Yakutat. And otherwise, the Panhandle seeing some breaks today. Still some snow showers or rain or snow showers down around Ketchikan, Metlakatla. And for tonight, you can see this trough swings in and brings the chance of snow into the northern Panhandle. And even along the coast, kind of a chance of snow showers lingers. Weak low pressure drifts eastward here, or develops, actually hangs south of the Kenai Peninsula. So that'll keep a chance of light snow, say for Port Moller, Seldovia. And snow showers will probably develop and move across Kodiak Island. Eastern North Gulf Coast, scattered snow showers also up into the southeastern Copper River Basin. And then clear and cold again over the interior, anywhere from 35 to 55 below for your lows in the interior. That includes probably back to that 30 to 40 below range for the Susitna Valley, and below zero temperatures again right out to the southwest coast. Light snow showers continue with light winds now for the Alaska Peninsula, the Pribilofs. And here comes that next storm with the gale and possible storm force winds that tomorrow will probably just push maybe some minimum gales into the Adak-Atka area. Southeast winds, warmer temperatures. So what starts out as snow will change to a mixed rain and snow, and then possibly trend toward just plain rain by tomorrow evening. Otherwise, less snow shower activity keeps diminishing here with light wind conditions, Alaska Peninsula, back to the Pribilofs. And clear skies again, cold temperatures, highs below zero just about over all of interior Alaska. And chance of snow, a little bit better chance now for the eastern North Gulf Coast into the Copper River Basin. Could see some light snow showers westward into the eastern end of Turnagain Arm, say from Alyeska on over to Portage and eastward there across Prince William Sound, Cordova, and into, again, spreading in toward Elephant Cove. Otherwise, things on the decrease elsewhere here for the southeast coast. Lingering snow showers over toward the eastern border, but you could see some clearing over the central and south coastal areas. And then Arctic high pressure holds over the north slope and Arctic coast, and actually into Tuesday as well, although a weak trough dropping down from the northwest could bring some light snow and fog, flurry type situation to the eastern Beaufort Sea coastline there, possibly. That's about the only change you're going to see up there. Really no change here in the interior. And chance of snow showers with the clouds, again, streaming westward here, coming around these two low centers. And looks like another shot of some light snow coming into the northern Panhandle, possibly as far south as Sitka on Tuesday with that slow-moving trough. Clearing out again Kodiak Island, but with light winds. And this front continues to weaken as it pushes into the Alaska Peninsula. So probably looking at just small craft advisory level winds with rain and snow for the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula. Lows tonight, anywhere from 35 to 50 or 25 to 50 below here for the interior areas, coldest on the north slope. But you can see below zero right out to the southwest coast again. 17 the Pribilofs, 19 Kodiak, and mid-teens to upper 20s for the Panhandle. And then for your highs tomorrow, mid-20s to mid-30s for the southeast coast. About like today here over interior Alaska, maybe some areas a little bit milder depending on the cloud cover you have, but staying below zero, 15 below Talkeetna, forecast high tomorrow, and Gulkana, really not much difference there, minus 17. Upper 20s Kodiak Island, followed by lows on Tuesday morning. Maybe milder, anywhere from 25 to 50 or 25 to 45 below, and mid-20s Arctic coast, below zero again South Central Alaska, 20 to 35 below for the Susitna Valley.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather, we've got extensive area of IFR possible up there along all of the Arctic coast and part of the North Slope. Otherwise, Brooks Range into the northern interior. Good VFR out west here, remaining off the coast there. IFR just north of the Pribilofs on down to the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. Some marginal VFR north of the Alaska Range here into the northwest, a little bit up over the Upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, right around Eagle actually. Also the Copper River Basin, marginal VFR, possible IFR actually as well in there, especially up toward the mountains, but call it marginal for now. IFR over the Panhandle and VFR over the west central Aleutians. And then that gives way to IFR as that next front pushes a band of IFR eastward across Adak and eventually Atka. And not too bad, marginal VFR with some areas of VFR scattered around the central and eastern Bering Sea, becoming VFR off the coast here and inland. Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, mostly VFR. South Central Alaska, VFR. Lingering low stuff here north of the Alaska Range, otherwise VFR. Arctic coast, still IFR, but not quite as extensive in the Panhandle. Marginal VFR there over toward the east, eastern North Gulf Coast, on down to over about Elfin Cove, IFR. And for Tuesday morning, that zone still around Yakutat in toward Elfin Cove and then maybe up toward Haines, and Juneau in the marginal zone there. Sitka right on the edge of marginal VFR, otherwise south area, or areas to the south will be VFR. Much interior Alaska again VFR except north of the Alaska Range, and a band IFR, central eastern Arctic coast. Out west, advancing IFR starts to break up actually for Tuesday afternoon as it progresses a little to the north across the Pribilofs and into the Alaska Peninsula, followed by quite an area of VFR and then some more IFR just south of Kiska and Amchitka Island. Not much change over the interior, maybe some marginal stuff now for the Sitna Valley, Copper River Basin, and Arctic coast, same thing, central east side, IFR, and the Panhandle, marginal VFR north, VFR south. Passes Anatuvik and Adigan, both VFR again tomorrow, optimistically, and for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR. Rainy, same forecast VFR, also for windy, and Isabel, VFR trending toward IFR later in the day, some moisture streaming northward, and Mintasta, VFR with increasing chances of marginal VFR in the southern entrance as the day wears on, and for Tanita, VFR trending toward marginal VFR in the afternoon, Portage VFR, and Chilkoot and White IFR will become better in the afternoon but probably only to marginal, not quite making it to VFR. Freezing levels at the surface here, 2,000 feet still south of the Queen Charlotte's, surface right hugging the coastline here of the Panhandle up to Yakutat, then south of the mainland, south of Kodiak Island, just touching the Alaska Peninsula, just south of the eastern Aleutians, now back north of Adak and Atka. And icing, best chance will be out here to the west with that next more significant front, I'll call it, pushing into the Aleutians here. Could be some areas of considerable moderate rime icing there above about 6,000 feet with some lighter stuff reaching Atka. Icing free everywhere else except up here over the eastern North Gulf Coast. Could be some areas of moderate and possibly mixed icing here, surrounded by an area of lighter stuff. And jet stream, southwest flow about 70 knots, cutting across the Panhandle more or less there. Cold upper low kind of hung up here over south central Alaska, right around Denali, maybe of the center of which, and northwest flow about 100 knots across Bristol Bay. Some ridging here into the Bering Sea ahead of this next system coming in, and the 9,000 foot wind flow chart showing low pressure right over south central Alaska. Light east-northeast winds to the north and westerlies 25 to 35 coming across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, 30 knots into the Panhandle, and southerlies 45 to 50 knots or so, western and central Aleutians. And same thing at 3,000 feet here, 50 to 55 knot winds at this elevation. That in the afternoon pushing in toward Adak. Lighter winds, 5 to 15 knots under the ridge axis. Westerlies 20 to 30 across Kodiak Island. Translates into some moderate chop there for the Barren Islands, Kodiak Island. Moderate chop here, central Aleutians, all the way out to Shemya.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and today I'm privileged to introduce Dr. Uccellini, the Director of the United States National Weather Service. Welcome back to Alaska, sir.
Thank you, Dave. Glad to be here.
Thanks. Prior to being the leader of the National Weather Service, your work included an extensive look at snowstorms across the northeastern United States. These are the types of storms that can bring some of the country's largest cities to its knees. Tell me a little bit about your fascination with snow.
Well, as far back as I can remember, I've always been interested in weather, growing up as a kid on Long Island, New York, and was particularly fascinated by snowstorms, why they occurred. The distribution of snow was very varied across the entire region, the rain-snow line, all those things fascinated me right from the get-go. And I was interested in knowing how they worked, how the forecast worked, or more often than not, didn't work one way or the other. And that drove me, that interest continued to build and drove me through high school right into college, wanting to be a meteorologist.
Okay, that's a fascinating story, and I think every meteorologist has a weather story like that in some way.
Right.
Due to Alaska's size and proximity to the North Pole, sometimes it's difficult to detect and analyze the weather patterns over Alaska. What's the National Weather Service doing to improve that weather detection?
Well, observations in this type of environment is a big challenge, whether it's from space or from what we call in situ observations from the ground or within the systems. Clearly, satellites have been playing an increasing role in providing the big picture, not only from a visual sense and what you see is occurring, but also from providing the data for numerical models that then are used to actually predict the weather. Alaska is actually pretty well positioned with respect to polar orbiting satellites, since you get a faster return of those satellites over your particular area. And in fact, the polar satellite system is the backbone for the observations that we use in our models, especially our global models, and they're particularly important for observing weather features that affect Alaska.
Alaskans live and die by the weather every day, and one of the strategic goals of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the National Weather Service is to develop a more weather-ready nation. What does it mean for Alaskans to be weather-ready?
Well, the strategic outcome is based on people being ready, responsive, and therefore resilient to the increasing threats to extreme weather events. Those threats are related to not only the nature of the events, but the fact that we're becoming more vulnerable to them as we have more people, more infrastructure that could be affected by these events. So we have to ensure that the observations we make for situational awareness, the forecasts we make for people to take the proper responses are connected to people's actions, the response to these events, so that they will be more resilient to what's facing them. There are examples with respect to hurricanes. More people living along the coastline takes longer to evacuate. We have to make better forecasts with longer lead times, but we also have to communicate the threat so people will actually take action to avoid those storms. Up here you have, as in other parts of the United States, an increasing threat related to fire. As there are more people living in fire-prone areas. We have to ensure that our forecasts are good, that we don't have false alarms that make people not react to the forecast when in fact they should. But we also have to be able to communicate the threat and make sure that we're working with the partners in the emergency management community so that communities and right down to individuals will actually take the proper responses in the face of these events. So that's the strategic goal. There are a lot of challenges for us in terms of improving forecasts, but also improving our communication skills and linking with the emergency management communities that are actually out there trying to protect lives and mitigate property loss.
So a huge partnership effort going forward.
That's one of the important keys for the success of meeting the strategic goal.
Okay. Well, one of the things you're talking about was understanding the weather information we're getting back from the computers, weather modeling, and you did a lot of work with that in some of your prior positions with the Environmental Prediction Center there, the National Center for Environmental Prediction. What can you tell us about recent improvements in that weather modeling? And you were using the polar orbiters as kind of a source of information that started that process.
Well, first of all, we have to recognize that everything you see, you read and hear about weather, climate, or ocean forecasts are all driven by numerical models. Now, it really has been the revolution in our forecast process in the last part of the 20th century. The success of that numerical enterprise is based on three factors: big computers, global data, not just local data, but you have to have a global data set, and then the models themselves, the science that's behind the models and in running the models in an operational mode. So we're working to improve all three of those components. We upgraded our computers last year. We're going through another upgrade even as I speak. We'll be upgrading from 200 trillion calculations per second to 700 trillion calculations per second by January of 2015. This increase in the computer will allow us to run what we call Earth system models. It's not just the atmosphere, it's the atmosphere, ocean, ice, which is obviously very important up here, and land models that are all coupled together at higher resolution. So you need the big computers, you need the science that allows us to run these models and run them in a parallel mode, and that they're coupled so that the ocean effects could affect the atmosphere and vice versa, as an example. And then the global observations are absolutely critical, and over the last 20, 30 years they've become more dependent upon the satellite systems, and especially the polar orbiting satellites, which help drive the observations needed for those models, whether they be atmospheric observations, land, ice observations. We're deriving more and more of that from satellites now that feed into these models and produce forecasts with extended lead times. Now out, for extreme events especially, we're seeing much improved forecast out in the 4, 5, 6, 7, and even 8-day range, which gets us back to Weather Ready Nation, because if you're going to get ready for a storm event, you want those consistent forecasts approaching that event from day 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, so you can take the actions several days in advance that can help mitigate the property loss and protect your livelihood.
Okay, all part of the mission of protecting life and property. Dr. Uccellini, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and speaking to Alaskans and sharing how the National Weather Service is working for Alaska and the nation. Wish you safe travels around the 49th. Enjoy your time here, sir. And for Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis continuing to grow south and southwestward here. You can see an increase there for Bristol Bay, and also continuing increase here in Cook Inlet as well. And that's trend forecast to continue here for the next 4 or 5 days. And for the coastal water forecast, not too bad on the south coast, west-northwest, 15 knots there, seas 9 feet, southeast 15 for Clarence Strait. Swinging around to the northeast here for the central and side waters, same speeds, 15 knots, and Lynn Canal, northwest at 20 with 4-foot seas. North coast here, a different story, a little stronger winds, small craft advisories, kind of a varying direction, northwest 25 on the north coast there, and then over toward the northwest, south 20, gust 35. And then for Tuesday, south to southeast 15 to 20 knots here on the north coast, with seas running 8 feet, southwest 20 on the south coast, and northwest 15 for Clarence Strait, northeast 20 for northeast 15 for its passage, or Stevens Passage, and small craft advisories return to Lynn Canal, north winds 25 knots, 5-foot seas. Prince William Sound, northwest at 15 tomorrow with seas at 3 feet. Small craft advisories, eastern North Gulf Coast, west winds at about 25, sustained. And then the western North Gulf Coast and Barren Islands, northwest 20. Kamishak Bay, back in the small craft advisories there, northwest at 30 knots with heavy freezing spray in this zone. And Cook Inlet, northerlies 10 to 15. And for Tuesday, northwest 25 knots with small craft advisories now across the Barren Islands. And all of the North Gulf Coast, northwest at 20 knots, 7-foot seas, north 15, Prince William Sound, and seas at 3 feet. And for Bristol Bay, northeast, light northeast winds at 10 with seas at 1 foot. West-northwest, 20 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, seas 5 to 6 feet, and northwest winds at 20 knots. Also across Kodiak Island from Shelikof Strait, 5 to 7-foot seas. And then for Tuesday, northwest breezes now for Kodiak at 15 to 20 knots, strongest on the Pacific side of the island, and seas 7 feet. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, north 15 knots, Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, east 25, and the Bering Sea side of the peninsula also east at 25 knots, and bring it up to 20 knots from the northeast over what you'll see tomorrow for Bristol Bay. And for the western Aleutians, still going to the storm warning here out over the far western Aleutians. A narrow band in advance of that front coming into the western areas there, about 40 knots here to Kiska Island. Coming up 30-35 knots for the central Aleutians from the east-southeast. And Unalaska Island kind of in a variable transition zone there, so just variable at 15. But Unmac Island, especially toward Nikolsky, coming up southeast 30 knots in the late afternoon. And small craft advisories for Fox Islands on Tuesday, southeast 25 to 30 knots for Unalaska Island, and west-southwest 20 to 25 Unmac Island, Adak and Etka, south to southwest 20 to 25, and gale force winds out of the southeast for the western Aleutians from Mchitka Island all the way out to Shemya. And for the southwest coast, northeast 10 to 15 knots. That blows right into the northern Bering Sea. Pretty light here by comparison for St. Lawrence Island, east at 10, west 20 for the Pribilofs. And for Tuesday, gales come into the Pribilofs here, increasing to 35 knots. Out of the east, seas build to 10 feet. Winds come up to 30 knots over the northern Bering Sea. In the southwest coast, east-northeast at about 20, and 10 to 15 knot winds from Norton Sound out across St. Lawrence Island. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, or central and east side, 5 to 10 knot winds out of the west, east 15 on the west side, and then northeast 15 coming around the Capes and back down to 10 knots there toward Wales. And the next day, southeast winds 10 from Wales all the way up to along the western Arctic coast. West winds 10, pick it up to 15 knots now for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast out of the west. And for tonight, light winds up there could lead to maybe some areas of low clouds, fog possibly in areas there. Otherwise, north slope, temperatures 45, 50 below zero or more, and well below zero over the interior. Wind chill advisories that are out will end at 6 p.m. this evening. Snow advisory there for the northern Panhandle, Gustavus, and Salisbury Sound and Cape Fairweather in that coastal area there for 3 to 4 inches of snow. Light everywhere else here, and the outlook for tomorrow is still a better chance of snow for the North Gulf Coast. Some of that getting a little far inland, but not making it into past the Chugach Mountains if anything gets to that point at all, and better over the Panhandle. And then chance of snow the next day. This front weakens as it slides into the eastern Bering Sea. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.